Good morning. My name's Codey Gandy. Really excited about today. I was trying to think last couple of weeks on kind of the topic that we wanted to talk about. And what really spurred my direction was over the last month, I've had the opportunity. I live up in Northern California. I've had the opportunity to work with one of our local sheriff's department and one of our local fire departments, which was really unique for me because for the last 4 years, those are the first two driving gigs that I had to do. Other than that, I'm always flying East Coast or the South or somewhere crazy and having a bunch of travel issues. So that part was cool, but it was also cool because I've lived here for almost 25 years besides the military. And I know and love these departments. So it was really cool. And what spurred my direction on this was one of the questions I got revolving around the concept of extreme ownership. And I know some of you are like, here we are to talk about extreme ownership again, and you're damn right. I mean, it's the name of the book. Jocko and Leif called it extreme ownership for a reason. So we're going to talk about it again. One of the questions that was brought up yesterday when I was at a full day workshop was talking about the courses of action when you take ownership. For example, hey, if I take ownership, what potentially is going to happen next? Because people are unsure, especially in the first responder community where taking ownership might not be your go-to move. And I know that is the case because military first responders or people in general, extreme ownership isn't your first course of action. Believe it or not, we are not programmed to take ownership. Believe it or not, we are programmed as little people to start to defer, to start to blame, to start to do anything we can to get out of a situation because taking ownership is hard. And I know this to be true because if anybody has kids, or if anybody knows a kid, or if anybody was a kid in their past life, how often do you see a young kid take ownership or take responsibility when they do something wrong? Never. I have 4 little ones, all under the age of 5, and not once in the last 5 years have they rogered up and be like, hey, you know what? I spilt that. I did this. I broke that, whatever the case may be. They will do anything and everything in their power to blame their brother, their sister, me when I'm on the road that I broke something in the house, the dog, or even a plant or something like that, just to get out of the situation. And for me, that just goes to show that, hey, as a young kid, that is our default method. One of the mindsets is default aggressive. This is a default method for us because blaming other people protects our precious ego. I don't want to take ownership because then it's my fault and people are going to look to me like, well, the boss doesn't know what he's doing or everything. So I want to talk about these courses of action because ownership is hard. If you think about it, Jocko and Leif, after they wrote this book, they had to pick a title for this. And you can think they could have titled this anything. How they won the Battle of Ramadi, laws of combat and action, how to win the war, what A, B, and C. But they titled it Extreme Ownership. 300 plus pages, and they titled it Extreme Ownership. Very simple concept, taking ownership, taking responsibility, accountability of what you do as an individual. And they named it Extreme Ownership. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the courses of action. Let's talk about the courses of actions first if we don't take ownership, because I know if this is new to you or you have a hard time doing it, that this could be a route that you take. If I don't take ownership, if I come in and I run a training or I run a mission and it goes south, and I look to my team and I tell PJ and I tell Chris and I tell Ty, hey, PJ, man, hey, you know what? You sucked out there. You weren't able to do this. Hey, Chris, man, your training is not up to the standard. You need to get your stuff squared away. And Ty, I don't know what you were doing during the brief, but obviously you weren't paying attention. If I blame and I'm harsh and I demand all these things from these 3 people, what do you think they're going to say afterwards? What are they going to say when I'm up here as their boss in charge of all of them, fully responsible for the outcomes of the team, and I'm up there on the soapbox blaming every person on the team, specifically my subordinate leaders? The courses of actions are, 1, they're going to get defensive. If you have maybe alpha type person, which a lot of you first responders are, they're going to fire back at you. PJ is like, hey, you know what? Actually, you didn't give me everything that I need. That's on you, boss. That's not on me. I don't know what I don't know. So 1 course of action is they're going to get defensive. Number 2 is I have Chris, which we're talking about train, and he's a little green. He's a little new. Maybe he just shuts down. If I'm the boss and I have 20 years of service and Chris is brand new and I'm up here like, hey, this is your fault. You need to train better. Probably not even going to say anything. He's just going to shut down. And moving forward, it's going to be this timid person that's afraid to take action, even make a decision, because he's afraid of the consequences down the road. And I know that happens all the time. You have new team members that make a mistake and you lay the hammer on them. They're afraid to make a decision down the road. You have shut down, you got defensive, and lastly, you're going to have people that are going to try to get out of the situation and blame everybody else, anybody else, to get out of that situation. Because when people point the finger at you, the mindset is, oh, I don't want to take this on. Like, I'm going to shift it to somebody else. Ty's like, hey, you know what? Anthony was there. Paul was driving the truck, and Jamie was the one that went in the door, man. All three of those guys, they were the ones that needed to do that. So those are the courses of action when you don't take ownership, which if you're not taking ownership, today is the day that you can start moving forward. Because as I just showed you, when you don't take ownership, nothing positive is going to come from it. In that situation, I have 4 people in a situation, and nothing's going to get solved down the road. I have 4 people, and all of us are pitting against each other. We're shutting down. We're not trying to solve the problem. The problems are still there when you don't take ownership. Now, this is a question that I got yesterday, and this is a question that I love to talk about. What are the courses of action when I do take ownership? Because if I'm the boss, and if I read the book, and I understand that if I'm in charge, it is my fault, and I'm looking to my team on, hey, what did I do? What did I not do to put those guys in positions to make mistakes? And I take ownership. What are my potential courses of action? Because if extreme ownership is new for you, or you hit roadblocks over time, you're going to be curious, what's going to happen? A lot of people initially are like, well, you know what? I'm going to take ownership so that other people take ownership back. Understand that if that is your intent, you are doing this wrong. I don't go out of my way, and I'm not up here like thinking of ways that I can manipulate my team. Hey, JP, you know, the other day when you booked that flight and it was too expensive, you know, I know you booked that, dude, but actually that was me. And in my head, I'm like, well, JP booked it. Like, he needs to take ownership. And I'm waiting for the foot to drop, for the other person, the other party to take ownership. Here's the reality of ownership. You can't make another person do it. You can't force it. When you force it, it is not their own idea. It is, they don't have the buy-in. They're not going to do it when you're gone. So if I take ownership, what are the courses of action? The first course of action, if this is new for you, or if you haven't done this in the past, or your default message is to blame other people, your first course of action, if I go to my team, same discussion. Hey, PJ, you weren't able to do this, man. It's 100% on you. Sorry, let me rephrase that, because now we're doing the right thing. I'm going default angry on this. So I tell PJ, hey, PJ, you know what? I did not give you enough support. I did not give you enough time to do your mission. That's 100% on me. Moving forward, I'm going to do A, B, and C. Just generals for context. First course of action, if this is new for you, PJ potentially is going to say, hey, you know what, boss? Yeah, you're right. This is your fault. That can be a course of action. When you take ownership, this being new, or your default is to blame other people, one of the course of action is people are going to call you out on it, and you have to be okay with that. Now, that course of action doesn't sound like too much fun, but hey, guess what? The point of this is, I'm not up here taking ownership to get out of the situation. I'm not up here taking ownership so that PJ does it down the road. I'm taking ownership because I actually believe that I played a role in PJ, Chris, and Ty making those mistakes. So if someone calls you out on it, good. Now we are aligned. Hey, you know what? I'm going to give you A, B, and C so this mistake never happens again. That's on me. Problem solved. That's the end result of this harsh course of action, is the problem still gets solved. So that's your first course of action. The second course of action is people are going to wait. People are going to watch and see what you do. And understand, if you're new into this extreme ownership thing, you're going to have a limited amount of opportunities to really get the ball rolling in the right direction in terms of creating a culture of extreme ownership. So I go to Chris, we're talking about training. Hey, Chris, you know what? I know you're relatively new, man. And obviously I haven't done a good job getting you up to speed. I did not set the standard. I did not set the expectation. I have not sat down with you and gone over the training jacket to make sure that you knew everything you needed to do to be successful. That's on me. We're going to fix it. Moving forward, I'm going to get with you once a week. Moving forward, I'm going to sit down with you every Friday, and we're going to go over this training jacket to make sure I'm giving you everything you need to be successful. So when I say people are going to wait and watch and see what you do, they're going to wait for those actionable items. So Chris is going to sit there and be like, okay, well, the boss took ownership. He told me he's going to sit down with me every week. And he told me every Friday, we're going to sit down and go over the training jacket to see how he can support me. I mean, that sounds pretty good. Chris is pretty excited. And now he's going to sit back. And when you take ownership, your team is going to sit back and watch and wait. Don't be naive. Everybody on this call, you are being watched and you are being judged by everything that you do. Everything that you do and everything that you don't do. Everything that you say and everything that you don't say. So if I tell him that I'm going to train him and I tell him I'm going to sit down with him every Friday to go over the training jacket, and I don't do that, I'm just using ownership as lip service to, excuse me, I'm using it as lip service just to get out of this heat of the moment because I'm in front of 30 of his peers. Hey, they tell me, and then I say these course of actions and I don't do those things. What do I lose? I lose credibility. I lose trust. And now the next time Chris take ownership, he's like, oh, cool. There goes the boss again. Wah, wah, wah. Just saying those things just to get out of the situation. People are going to fire back and call you out. People are going to wait and watch and see what you do. Both those course of action don't sound like a lot of fun. But if you understand extreme ownership and you understand that it is your fault, hey, when people fire back, good. And you actually just do the things you say you're going to do, which is what a good leader should do, the problem gets solved. So in both of these two harsh courses of action, still the problem gets solved if you do the right thing. Now, the third course of action, and everybody's been waiting for the third course. Where's the good part? If I do this, where is the good stuff? I'm going to say this carefully. If you take ownership, potentially, not eventually, potentially people on the team are going to start to adopt this principle. Because as much as I said, it is in our human design to blame other people, when you are part of a team and you trust and you have these relationships, and PJ, and he's my subordinate, and Chris is the one running the training, and Ty's the one that's running the call. There are two people in this position, in this situation. Part of us as humans, when you respect the leader and they're doing the right things, is to say, hey, you know what? PJ's like, hey, boss, you know what? You actually did give me everything that I needed. I actually had enough time to do rehearsals. I just didn't do them. That's actually on me. And Chris is like, hey, you actually clearly stated the training. You know what? I just didn't read it. I have so much stuff going on as a new guy, and that's not it's not an excuse. I just need to do a better job. But I appreciate you bringing that up. And Ty's like, hey, boss, you know what? I wasn't really paying attention in the brief. You talked for 45 minutes. I know I had to write down one thing and I got distracted. I actually sent all my guys to go prep for the mission. And I actually wrote down a 6 out of a 9 and my numbers got messed up. I should have gave you a read back, man. That's on me. That can be a course of action. If done properly, if you genuinely believe that it is your fault and you do the right things and you show people this is what it looks like, potentially people on the team are going to be like, hey, you know what? I was there too. And if you think about it, this best course of action where 1, 2, 3, 4 people on the team are fighting to take ownership, how likely are those problems going to be solved? Exponentially, rather than blaming other people. Because here's the thing as well, PJ, Chris, and Ty, they have people on it as well. So now this is just trickling down the tree to the rest of the team. And now you have 4, now you have 8, now you have 12, now you have 30 people in a 100-person department taking over. Stuff gets done. Problems get solved. That's what is amazing about this. And I can speak to this because the last 4 years, JP for the last 6 years, Echelon Front for the last 10 years, extreme ownership is extremely contagious if done the right way, with the proper intent. I say that again, with the proper intent. Now, ownership is not for everybody. If you try to force it, if you try to direct people to do it, it's not going to work. That's why I said potentially people on the team will buy in. Not eventually. It's not for everybody. But even though it's not eventually, there's still power in ownership, because guess what? You don't need everybody. If you have everybody, then it is a really nice thing. I can speak from an Echelon Front perspective. When something goes wrong, it's really annoying when I have 15 people trying to take ownership for something that I did by myself. And JP text, I'm like, dude, you were asleep when this happened and it's not your fault. But JP's doing it not because of the book, but because he actually believes him as my boss, he is at fault for something that I did. How powerful is that? How much do you think I trust him, respect him, his ability to influence me? It's the roof. That's what happens when you create a culture that is embodied by extreme ownership. Last thing on my soapbox on here. Some people are really afraid to take ownership. I had a bunch of people yesterday talk about, hey, you know what? I have severe anxiety when problems go wrong, and I see that it's my fault. I have anxiety, my PTSD kicks in, and I'm afraid to take this step. I want you to think about this. If I'm up here and I take ownership and I believe that it's my fault and I put a plan together, all those things that we talk about, the worst course of action is somebody says, hey, boss, it is your fault. You are right. Think about that. In the heat of the moment, things go wrong, somebody gets hurt, whatever the case may be, and I'm up here and I take ownership. The worst course of action in this moment in time is somebody saying, hey, boss, it is your fault. That's the worst course of action if you actually believe that you are at fault. And if we just listen to what I talked about, that's okay. But if you're going to fight this, if you're going to find ways to make it not your fault, if you're going to look for every opportunity to blame other people, you will be frustrated moving forward, because when you don't take ownership and you wait for other people to do it, you're losing your power to control what is going on. I have some people in my life, unfortunately, that refuse to even think about this concept, because in their head, they believe there's no possible way that they're at fault, even 1% of this problem that they have. This is a family member of mine. And when you have this mindset that it is never your fault, believe me, you are going to be frustrated, utterly frustrated from here moving on out, because you have no control over the outcome, because you are waiting for somebody else to come solve your problem. And I don't know about you, whether you're in the SEAL teams, the Marine Corps, police, fire, or you work at Target, typically bosses and people don't come to you and say, hey, I'm here to solve all your problems. It doesn't work that way. Ownership is about you, what you do as an individual, ways that you can look at the team at mistakes and see how you played a role in what's going on. You don't make excuses. There's no one else to blame. And ownership, it gives you the ability to solve the problems in life. That again, gives you the ability to solve the problems in your life. And the last thing for JP, if you're going to do this, you have to be okay with being the only one. Whether you're in a small team or whether you're in your department, and if this is brand new for you, you have to be okay with being the only one that takes ownership, and understand that, hey, if I'm going to get this to the team, it's going to take some time. I don't take ownership the first time, and now JP, who's been my boss for 20 years, like, oh, cool, that sounds great. It takes time. All the stuff we talk about typically is a campaign. Ownership in a culture is a campaign. But don't wait for other people to adopt it. It starts and ends with you. Show people what it looks like. Show your teams what it looks like, so that you and the team can have culture. Ownership is a part of it, and allows you to solve anything and everything in your personal and professional life. JP, sir.
Not that I needed to crack open a go to get excited talking with my first responder brother and sisters. Man, good training, Cody. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. And man, I love being on these calls, getting ready just to have some good conversations, interactions with you guys. As Cody was talking, I was just reviewing some of my notes and taking notes while he was talking. And I was just, one of these things I wrote down recently is critical thinking. And how decentralized command gives your people the space to think. And I just think about how that's just tied into what Cody was talking about, of us taking ownership and then also giving ownership to the people on our team. Is your goal as an individual, as a leader, is to teach your people how to think, not what to think. And I think back when I was in the military, and when I was younger in the military, I very rarely ever stepped up to try to lead or make decisions or do anything, because of a few different reasons. One was bad leadership. And unfortunately, this is really common in the military, in fire, and police, EMS. It's where somebody's young and they're like the F and G, right? And like they go to say something, you're like, hey, I'll tell you when you can talk. You're like, yeah, cool, great culture we're building here, guys. Now I understand there is an aspect of like, hey, when you're new to certain teams, you should probably stay quiet and be listening and observing and learning and taking on as much as you can. Like, that's cool. I dig that mindset. I love that because it keeps our people humble. But we need to do a better job. And when I say we, I mean we, all of us, military, law enforcement, first responders, fire, EMS, border patrol, all of us. We need to do a better job at finding the balance between holding that line to keep our new people humble and hungry, but also empowering them with the confidence to make decisions, to step up and think. Because here's the deal. The people on your team could be the ones responding to your Mayday call. So do you want them to have the ability to think outside the box when your life is on the line? Or do you want them hesitant because they've never had the ability to step up and take ownership? This is serious shit for what you guys do. You guys deal with human life every single day. This is not an accounting company. We're not dealing with a pharmaceutical company, which I have those clients and they're awesome, but they don't deal with what you guys deal with every single day. And if you're not taking ownership and driving ownership, there's going to be a knock on your door one day. And it's going to be your wife or your husband or your kids receiving that knock. That's how serious this can be. Yes, you need to take ownership, but you also need to drive ownership. You need to drive critical thinking to your team. And if you're the one that's always just doing it all, you're hindering your team. You're hindering your people. And guess what? When you step up and you take ownership, you're setting the example of what good looks like. Because when I look back to my good leaders, I wanted to emulate what they did. The ones that I had respect for, not because of their position or their title, because of the influence they had, because of the relationships they built. When I saw them taking ownership, I wanted to do the same thing. And when I would step up and take ownership under good leadership, they would encourage it. And when I would make a mistake, we would work through it. And they would say, hey, why did you make that decision? And as long as my intent was good, and they would say, all right, well, okay. In this situation, in this environment, we don't do this because of this, or we do this because of this. And it was a training opportunity. But then in the past, when I had bad leaders and I would step up and try to lead or do something and I made the wrong decision, I got hammered and I got ridiculed and I got yelled at. And how many more times do you think I ever really wanted to step up and lead and take ownership with those bosses? I mean, I'm a glutton for punishment once in a while, but it wasn't that often that I wanted to like do it again and be embarrassed. So just remember, when you take ownership, you're setting the example. And to reiterate what Cody said, if you're going to do it, you better do it, and you do it right, and be willing to be the only one. And here's the deal. If you're the only one in your department that's stepping up and taking responsibility and leading and doing the right thing, if you're the only one, no bad comes from that. Literally, no bad comes from it. Now, I know somebody's thinking, well, JP, if I do that, that means I'm going to have extra work on my plate. Cool. You're probably going to have it on your plate eventually anyways, because of the other turds that you work with. So you might as well take it on your plate and do it right. Like that. Okay. So that's the worst thing, is you have a little more work. Okay. You came into this industry because of the work. You didn't come to this industry to make a bunch of money. You didn't come into it to have the glamorous lifestyle. There's a lot of wear and tear for doing what you do. So take it, and take it with pride. And guess what? When you set that example and you're a good human and you build some relationships and influence some people, you're going to have one more, two more, three more that come on board. You're going to have a guy like Jeremy Johnson's like, hey, boss, let me take that off your plate. You're going to have a guy like PJ that's like, let me take that off your plate. And then when it comes time to where they need to step up and lead and do the right thing, they're going to do it because they know it's the right thing to do. And guess what? They're good people. They have some relationships they've built, and they're going to influence those around you. And it starts to grow. But like Cody said, if you don't do it, nobody else is going to. It's on you.